to talk a little bit about understanding what self-advocates say about supports and services. And we're super lucky to have with us Lindsay Brillhart, who is a mom and self-advocate in Ohio, and Dorothy Auckland, who is a mom and self-advocate in Nebraska. So first, I'm just going to ask you guys to tell us a bit about yourself and your family. Lindsay, do you want to start us off with that one?
Sure. I am a mom of a almost 21 and 11-year-old daughters. And I have a partner, and I've had my partner for 13 years. And we live in Southern Ohio near Cincinnati.
Oh,
Dorothy, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
okay. Hi, I'm Dorothy Auckland. I am 28 years old and I have two daughters, 18 months-ish and 4 months. And let's see, what else? What did you just do, child? Okay, nothing important.
Dorothy is actively parenting, as you can tell.
What was I gonna say? I live in York, Nebraska. I get some services, informal service. Okay, so I don't know how to explain this. I qualify for DD services, but I don't receive DD services, but I do receive formal support. Does that make any sense?
Yep. Yeah. And I know you've told me a little bit about that. And we'll talk about your support teams in a minute, but do you want to tell us first, Dorothy, you can start with this one if you want. What does self-advocacy mean to you, and how do you self-advocate?
Self-advocacy to me is simply explaining to other people what you need so you can function well in society. And it means that I have to know myself pretty well. It means that I have to understand how the things that I need or may need will impact other people to determine if they're necessary. Does that make any sense? Because sometimes it's easier to help make sure that I get help, but still not in a way that's like disruptive or anything to other people.
Yeah, I think that makes so much sense. And just that was a really poignant piece of you need to know yourself to be able to advocate for yourself.
And it's
Lindsay,
a lot of work.
Yeah. What about you, Lindsay? What does self-advocacy mean to you, and how have you had to advocate for yourself over the years?
I'll agree with Dorothy. A lot of it is to focus. A lot of times as parents, we don't focus on ourselves first. And sometimes we have to focus on ourselves, and we have to advocate for ourselves first, and we have to advocate for our kids. But some of those things might be for ourselves, just to make sure that our families get the right services and things like that.
And Lindsay, tell us a little bit about both your formal supports that you have in your life and the more informal supports that you have in your life.
The formal services I would have, I believe TASP. It might be informal, but I believe I've been involved with the Association for Successful Parenting for, oh my goodness, 13 years almost. And I believe that a lot of the people are my informal supports. I talk to them not daily, but probably weekly and monthly, and they have given me support that is informal. And like my neighbors, I have neighbors that have helped me out and things like that, and have talked to me and just say, things are okay, breathe and relax and know that things are okay. Formal supports would be, we get some, we qualify for services, but we don't get them, but they could be, like, for example, for my family, it would be like my daughter's teachers and the people that work with our family. We have wraparound, which works with our family, and they work with our family. They work with the school. They work with the local hospital and things like that. So we have a group that comes together about once a month or every other month during the summer, and once a month during the school year, and just make sure that we're all on the same on the same focus. So if we get out of focus, that team helps us get back together. So
There's Dorothy. So Dorothy, I was just asking Lindsay, and you can answer if you're able to just talk a little bit about kind of what you started to talk about, the formal supports that you have in your life and the informal supports that you have in your life or have had for both you and your kids.
For me, when I was in school, I had IEP and stuff like that. Now I have. Can somebody define what formal support technically is?
Yeah, so we talk about formal support a lot, and Lindsay, feel free to jump in, but formal support being what you tend to think of as paid support with providers that may come or go or change, unlike informal supports, which tend to be family members, friends, neighbors, people who are in your life kind of more naturally and help or support you versus those people whose job it is to provide support either through a school system or a disability system or anything like that. Medical systems would be formal. Does that make?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so some of the supports I have is I have a support worker who comes and works with me about 2 hours a week. And then I have somebody who through the league who comes about once a month for an hour, like paid dignity. And then I have early Head Start that works with us, and that is so nice. And then I have this I haven't used them yet, but sometimes I got them because I was like, if I ever need respite, I have childcare that is available that does drop in childcare.
Yeah.
Support workers also willing to do that, so that's really nice. And then informal support, neighbors, friends, family, people like that. So that's kind of my support network.
And so kind of playing on that question, like, can you guys talk a little bit about what it's like being involved in those multiple systems at once? Because I heard you, I mean, Dorothy, you talked about both the systems that you're involved for yourself as well as early Head Start for your kids. I know you've talked in the past about the medical systems you're involved in. And Lindsay, for you as well, like, is it ever difficult being involved in multiple systems at once, or is it supportive being involved in multiple systems at once, and how do they work together or not work together to support you guys?
I would say it's both. It can be negative and it can be positive. Like, for example, we have the doctors that come into our wraparound meeting and things like that too, because my daughter is nonverbal. So we're working on getting her the right resources that she needs. And sometimes those people, I'm going to put it the best way possible, but sometimes those people are not in our shoes. They understand some of the things that we need and things like that, but they don't understand what it's like to be a parent that has a kid with a disability. They might be a parent, but having a kid with a disability is a little bit different than parenting. So they try to encourage us, and I've had to say something to them because sometimes it's really hard to get them to understand what it's like in my shoes. And then they step back and I talk to them about what is hard for me to do and things like that. And we work all together as a team. So sometimes those teams fall apart, but we work together to keep everybody on a steady pace.
So it sounds, Lindsay, like you really gave a good example of a time you've had to advocate for yourself and say, hold on, you need to listen to what I'm saying and what my experience is like. And you have been very fortunate in your ability to do that. You're a very good advocate for yourself. And do you find that most professionals or people are receptive to you saying, hold on a second, I need you to understand this or listen to this?
There are sometimes that they are, but there are sometimes that they're not receptive. I think being a self-advocate and learning more about the system, going through even TASP, the Association for Successful Parenting, has made me have a stronger backbone to say things that I wanted to say. I used to be a really, really soft person and not stand up for myself and things like that. And I'm learning now to stand up for myself a lot more. That if I need the support, I'm learning to say, hey, I need the support, or hey, I need help with something. It might not be parenting, but it might be something I need help with. Like, for example, if I'm at a meeting and I don't understand, I'm learning, and it takes a while to learn, but I'm learning to say, hey, I don't understand this. Can I have somebody talk with me after this so I know exactly what's going on and what the doctors meant and things like that? Not just for me, but for my kids as well.
And so it sounds like it'd be really good advice for professionals just to be aware that even if a parent's not speaking up and asking for that, really ending each meeting, it sounds like with a question just about, was everything we talked about clear? Was there anything you didn't understand? Could we provide this information in plain language? Because if that's not being asked and you're not feeling confident to stand up for yourself, then you may not get the information that you need.
That, or the other suggestion I would have is maybe have a follow-up call a day or two later so that you can comprehend everything. Sometimes everything is like you understand it then, but maybe a day or two later you don't understand it, and have that person call, or sometimes if it's like a SSA, they can send you an email. Hey, do you understand this? Do you need somebody to go over this with you? Because sometimes the language that professionals use is not the right language that people need to use, and we all have to work on that people first language at times.
So even following up a few days later, I hear you saying, after you've had time to process whatever happened at the meeting. And what about you, Dorothy? How has it been being involved in kind of multiple systems, either for your kids or yourself, or what do you find most helpful when you're getting support from professionals?
So, first of all, one of the things that is the hardest part for me is needing formal support, more formal support, but being unable to get it. That's really hard, and kind of being stuck outside of the system for a silly reason where they're like, yeah, well, like I'm on the DD wait list, but I can't get services because I don't qualify for Medicaid. But I'm going to stay on the wait list because the truth of the matter is, if something were to happen to Eric, I would need more services.
And this is because you're married, and so that pushes you don't meet the income qualifications. Is that what you had told me previously? Yep.
Resource requirements. I think I meet the income requirements, or at least I have in the past.
Mhm.
Now I'm debating whether or not to work an extra job just so I can have a couple more hours a week.
Yeah. Which would qualify you for the supports?
Yeah, it would just get me the supports outside of the system.
Yeah.
The support worker I currently work with. But so like some of the things that have been really hard for me is remembering that one of the biggest concerns that I had when I was finding somebody to work with me was, are they going to understand that I'm the parent and you're the support worker, and your job is to support me? And sometimes that might mean doing some help with the kids, and sometimes that just means helping me with the tasks I need help with. And so that was really interesting to try to figure out how to manage that type of stuff. And then the other parts that are really hard are just sitting down and being like, I have autism, and because of that, like with Abby's stuff, there are times where I have to be like, I just need to reassurance that I'm doing this right, because it's scary, because it challenges your ability to trust your instincts.
And do you find that most professionals are aware and considerate of the fact that you are the parent and they need to listen to what you know to be true about your child more than them bringing their professional perspective into it, or kind of how to align those two things together?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah, no, I think that's a truthful answer. That's what we're looking for. So not always.
I think sometimes it's hard for professionals to see that, especially when you struggle so much. Like, it's obvious to people that I struggle. And so sometimes because I struggle in a way that's so obvious, easy to say, oh, well, she's disabled and she doesn't really understand, and we just have to explain it. And that's frustrating, but at the same, it's like you have to advocate and you have to explain no. Or it's like the doctor's appointments, they're like, does she make eye contact with you? And I have to sit there and look at them and go, I'm autistic. I don't look at people in the eye. I can't answer your question. And it's not because I don't want to, it's because I don't look at her in the eye. I look at her face, but I don't look at her eyes. So I don't know if she's making eye contact with me.
Right. So something as simple as just modifying some of those very basic questions that are written for kind of what they assume is any and every parent, but may not fit in any and every situation. And how do you modify those questions so that you can still get the information that they need, but ask it in a way that works for your family, whatever your family dynamic is, because all families look different, but just adjusting some of those questions.
And often what I wind up doing is going, well, can I have the questions beforehand so I can discuss it with my husband?
Yeah, I mean, that's so smart, Dorothy. You have figured out kind of a workaround for, right, some of these things he may know and you could ask him, but they may not be things that work for you to answer.
And you know what? Sorry.
Oh,
I have another suggestion too. And this is what we've done recently with my daughter, but you could do it with younger kids. When we go into the doctor's office, my daughter has a piece of construction paper, is thicker like construction paper, and it just says, she has it to give to the doctors. It says, hi, my name is Sarah. I am, and then it has a blank because she could be a different age, years old. I don't talk, I am nonverbal, something like that. So that she gets involved with some of those people, because they come in and they look at me like, who in the world is that? And what? So we try to get her to communicate in different ways. So maybe that might be a suggestion. If some of the support people have nonverbal kids that they work with, have something out. I am, my name is whatever. I am that many years old. And maybe like I am having a blank day, and underneath it could be good, okay, sad, something like that. So that when we go to the providers, that they understand that we all have bad days and we all have good days and we all have okay days or something like that. That could be something that they could work on as well. Even with the DDS people, parents could work on it with their kids and just put a number about their age and good. They normally know if they're having a good day. Like, for example, if your daughter gets up in the middle of the night, it could be a rough day or something like that. So
right.
That's a tip I would encourage.
Thanks, Lindsay. That's a good thought.
The other thing that I really struggled with is I go nonverbal. So like I have days that I can communicate, but I have to communicate without speech. I have to write down my thoughts and stuff like that. And there are days that I'm completely nonverbal, that I can't communicate in any way. And so one of the things that I've really struggled with is getting providers to get that almost, what do you call it? Like such a dynamic disability that changes every day and fluid.
Sure. And just putting those supports in place for those days when speaking verbally is difficult for you, so that you still have other ways to communicate.
Yep.
And then I'm wondering, Lindsay, if you would talk a little bit about kind of your experience at IEP meetings for Sarah, and what has been especially helpful from professionals at IEP meetings. And if there's a flip side to that, what has not been especially supportive or helpful at IEP meetings?
Well, the card thing that I was just talking about, that's something that we came up with brand new for Sarah, just to get her to communicate and things like that, because she doesn't communicate and it takes forever to get a communication device. And the day before or something like that, not the day before, but like the week before, her IEP comes home, and my partner works a full-time job and I'm a stay-at-home mom. we go over the IEP and see if there's anything that he wants to add. Not he supports us totally, but he'd rather be one of those people that is in the background, and he'd rather let me say the things for Sarah that we need to say for Sarah. So we go over it like a week in advance and just, hey, this is what we want to add, or this is what we want to take away, and maybe if there's something that we don't see that's on it, add it on a note. We have a notepad for like every time that we have a meeting like that. And the other thing that we do is we have a meeting with our wraparound team like the week before and say, hey, is there anything that the team thinks we have a person from Children's Hospital, there might be something that could say, I will help mom schedule appointments for Sarah or something like that, so we can take care of her health and things like that, because my family was in a predicament that we didn't have a house and things like that, and we had to have extra help. So maybe that could be something that people could do, have a notepad or something that had your notes on it before you go into that team, and have that next to you. And even while I'm in that meeting, I'm always writing notes, because there could be things that I'm thinking of during that meeting that I want to say after. But like if somebody's talking to somebody else, I always want to have that notepad just to say, okay, my brain is thinking of this right now. I just want to keep it in my brain, so I write it down, and I always have notes around for that.
And so it sounds, Lindsay, like getting a copy of the proposed IEP, the draft IEP, before the meeting, so that you have some time with your partner to look it through, go over everything, and have that lead up time to write down all your questions before the meeting is really helpful to you. And Dorothy, what about you in terms of, I know you don't have school age children yet, but I know you've talked about being involved in the kind of medical community for your daughter. Has there been anything that's particularly helpful when you go to medical appointments for her that make those easier for you or more understandable for you?
I set up with children's, in her chart it says the accommodations I need to function, and so they know what I need to be able to be a good mom and be a good support for her.
Hello. Hi. You joining us?
So that always helps, is
Yep.
having letting them know that I'm autistic.
Oh, hello. We hear you saying hello.
She's cute.
You're still on mute, Dorothy. Might be. Dorothy, you're still muted if you can hear us.
There we go.
There, she's
She
back.
must have muted me. Okay. Let's see. Basically, I tell them all the accommodations I need, and
And it's in your charts, or it's in her chart, so that when you're going, if you're seeing a new provider or somebody you haven't seen a lot, it's in there as a reminder to them of what you need for a successful appointment for her.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's extremely important that they understand my disability so that they can help us help her.
Absolutely. And so our last question, which you guys have talked a lot about, so if you have anything to add, you can, but it just really is what you want professionals to know about how to best support you and your family. And that could be what you find most helpful, or what you find least helpful, or just what's worked or not worked, or anything you want to share that you want professionals to know.
I think the biggest thing is remember that people first language, put the person first before the disability, and talk about the person kindly, and don't talk behind our backs, because words hurt at times.
Thanks, Lindsay. And what do you always share? You always tell us something about people coming into your house and their badges.
Yeah, the other thing I do is before that, I tell people to remember this: label jars, not people. So like if you have a jar the label is always on the jar and not on the person. That I learned that from somebody else, and I like that saying. So it's a smart idea to think about that. The other thing is that if we have somebody coming into our house, I mean, if we know them the first time, it's okay. But any other time, we don't like them to wear a badge in our house. They have to wear it somewhere else. I understand that. But we went to the provider that we have. She wore a badge when she came into our house, and I was like, hold on a minute. You're a part of my family. I've gotten to know you a few times to know that I'm comfortable enough with you. And so, like, at my house, you're a human being. You're not somebody that has that label on them. Please take it off. I don't feel comfortable with you in my house. Put it in your purse. If we go out, I understand that you have to have it to show to somebody, or if you go in the office, I understand that. But at my house, I do not want that in my house. You're a part of my family, and that person has been part of my family. Oh my goodness, 11 years, 12 years. So yeah.
So it sounds really, Lindsay, for you, like you appreciate things being a little bit more informal, even
Yes.
with formal support people. And I think it's really great to remember that every family might feel differently, right? So
Yes.
we always want professionals to just ask families and individuals what their level of comfort is, because everybody's going to feel differently.
And the other thing that I've learned recently is if you're in a doctor's office or something, or any kind of office, introduce yourself. A lot of times these doctors come in and say, not even hi or anything like that. Say, hi, my name is whatever, and introduce yourself to the other. Because sometimes, like Dorothy said, we don't look at the person, but you know what? Sometimes we remember their name or something, and the first impact that we have with them is the best. So if we are talking, like if I was talking to you, your name is Chelsea or something like that, and I didn't know who you were, it's like, who in the world are you, and what are you doing here in my house or at the doctor's office or at somebody professionally? Just introduce yourself. Like my introduction could be, my name is Lindsay Brillhart. I am a mom of 2 girls. Something easy like that, that somebody could remember something easy about you. Like Chelsea could say, I'm a mom and I have 3 kids, something like that, that would remember. If I'm seeing you another time, I could ask you, hey, how are your boys? Or hey, how are your kids? Something like that.
So kind of making that personal connection as well, Lindsay, is really
Yes.
important for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Dorothy, anything for you that you really kind of lastly want professionals to know about supporting you and your family?
Oh yes. One of them is, because of my autism, I'm not always the best with boundaries because I don't always know when I'm breaking them and stuff. So I need you to know what your professional boundaries are. And if I do something that doesn't necessarily follow professional boundaries, tell me, talk to me, treat me like a person. Don't presume I know what I'm doing, because while I do, I may not know that I'm violating a boundary or something like that. I'm just trying to function in society, and it's really hard to do that when society doesn't talk to you, because so much of it is nonverbal.
And just like Lindsay said, right, with the don't talk behind our backs, I think that's a very good point, Dorothy. Don't assume that people know or understand what you're thinking or feeling if you haven't said it out loud to them. So that's a really great reminder to just always talk, be open with the parent, and
Listen.
be really, listen and talk. Okay, anything that was really great to both of you, Dorothy and Lindsay. Thank you guys so much. I think it's really illuminating and helpful for professionals in just understanding how to best support you and what has gone well and not gone well with your systems and supports thus far. And I appreciate so much you guys sharing that with us and being willing to open up about it. It's going to be incredibly helpful for people.